and I'm going to keep preaching hope because hope is all we have. I'm a prisoner of hope. Optimism. Okay, so there's something in like the human condition, in the human psyche that similar to like our need for food, we have a need for seeing the fruit of our labor, right? Like we do what we do for some reason. Obviously, one of our goals and the stuff we write and the conversations we have and the gatherings that we host, all of that is to try to get to the bottom of that reason. But we do what we do for a reason. And I'm trying to get the camera to come back to me because Hugh's being so loud. There we go. But there's a necessary component to what you do, and honestly is something that I'm going through in this current moment, and I feel like has kind of been my life for 15 or 20 years. There's little bright spots for me. I feel like you don't have hardly any bright spots. Where there's like a necessary component to go, I'm working or I'm giving my life to something that I won't see the full picture of until my life is over. Okay? You tracking with me so far?
Familiar. Yep.
So like I had a situation yesterday where a guy that I'm really close with and have been kind of slowly, whatever you want to call it. Christians like to use the word like investing in. But I wouldn't even put it that way. I would say like there's been a mutual investment for the past 3 years of just friendship and collaboration and even like accountability. Like, how are you? What are you working through? We got kids the same age, but he's kind of had a rough go for the past, adult years, 20 years. One sort of bad circumstance or situation or decision, small little decision after another. And I can get into the details if I need to, but it is sort of the story of my disciple making life is, and I'm trying to use terms that people will understand in the world that we work in. But what I find myself surrounded by are the less fortunate, the homeless poor, the fatherless, and in a sense, in our culture, those who have kind of been pushed to the margins. So that fourth category is really important because it's all encompassing of so many that are bright and effective and talented, but they've still been pushed to the margins. And that like trauma inducing reality can sometimes cause them to be in like a vicious cycle of bad decision making or even just inefficient decision making. Like they keep finding themselves back in a hole. And I was in that place again yesterday where I just thought, man, if I'd have put 3 years into this, that, or the other, I would have seen such a larger return on like momentary temporal fruit and result. Okay, so I'm going to pitch it back to you and then we can. So you're doing this, you've been doing it since I met you 13 years ago. I think you were doing it before then. And you think it's fair to say that 99% of your investment yields very little, zero to little direct fruit, like measurable fruit from that individual or that group? Would you say that?
That question just caused me, if I was into weed, to just want to light one up before John answers.
Well,
Because I have a good pathway to go down. I just want to know if that's been your experience.
yeah, well, I don't I'm having a hard time with this. Not in that
I know you are philosophically. I'm more so just wanting to get a minute of just the practical what you kind of know me enough to know where I'm going.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the
This is like a
go ahead.
conversation that we're always having, right? And I would say that I see a lot of I know so the question around like fruit and I don't know how to answer that because I have a very like I don't know like a mystic assessment of the thing that's going on. But I do see a lot of fruit in the lives of individuals um here and there, right? And so it's like I don't know that I'd say 99% yield zero, but I do get the like this is not a there's something else going on here entirely. So you have these stories that emerge and you want to celebrate them and they do feel good, you know, so and so got a job, so and so got housing placement. I had a moment yesterday just when I was in the drop-in center and there was someone that was being a real problem for everybody, right? But then a buddy of mine was there that's homeless. He's a young dude on the streets I know pretty well. And I could see he was getting really worked up. And I like pulled to the side and I had a little chat with him just briefly of I said, "Hey man, I know this is like that this is uncalled for, that's super rude, whatever, but like I also see you, I can see you getting really worked up. And I just want to like take a moment with you and just say, listen, dude, um, you know, you have no control over what's going on around you. And this is, by the way, this is not about your behavior. Like I see you getting worked up, but I'm not telling you don't behave as if you're getting worked up. I'm actually trying to challenge the thing in you that is getting worked up. I want to say like, you have control over your own sense of peace. Like this person is not making you anything, making you feel any, you can choose, like you recognize they need help, right? You might not have that to offer, but you don't have to get all worked up and reactive, whatever. So we have this little reaction kind of moment. He thanks me, but then later, like hours later, texts me and he's like, dude, I'm really appreciative for that little chat we had. Like, this is something I've been trying to work on for years. This is like reflecting on it. Right. And so then I get that back. And in some big picture thing, like you're asking, I go, yeah, I don't know where this goes, but like, this feels like it felt like a real win in this one moment with this one individual. Right. But then at the same time, I would say I've had stories that have played out where like, I remember this guy we were working with that was sleeping in a porta potty that was behind this like construction. It was like a kind of a permanent porta potty by this like bus stop. And he was living in it. And it was terrible. And we ended up working with him. He ended up getting work and then he ended up getting a place. And then it was like this really amazing story over time. And so these are few and far between to the point of your question. But I remember a bunch of us celebrating this like path and like this success. And I was like, hey guys, I just want to like tell y'all like on a long enough timeline, you know, this is going to fall apart again, right? Like this is just like success stories are really just what point in time you snap the photo because this is what's happening in our lives. Like we're doing this like meandering up and down. And sure enough, we stayed with that guy I've known over, you know, a long period of time. And things fell apart and then things had to get built back and then things fell apart. And so anyway, I know your question is setting up like the idea of like long obedience in one direction, commitment to the process. But I also don't think I would say 99% of our work yields zero, but it's hard for me. If you said, now point to the wins, write them in a prayer letter, we invested money in you. Now tell me what the results of the work are. I would have a very hard time articulating those, which I think is the thing that you're
Yeah,
actually
and if I didn't articulate, I think I did, but if I didn't articulate this, let me be clear that it feels like 99% of it oftentimes yields zero when you look back over, if you look with certain metrics. And the point of the conversation, because I almost texted y'all last night and said, hey, can we just talk about this? Because I am in a situation once again where I have found myself in this situation so many times where I'm trying to figure out how to get a guy paid to provide for his family, and all he's wanting to do is like serve and give his life to something that is super meaningful and but we don't have any money. And so he can't work the job he was working to do the thing that we're doing. It's this youth movement, basketball, athletics, education, mentoring thing. Incredible man. From everything I can tell, after 3 years of walking closely, and I'm back in this situation again where he just didn't have the connections and the network and the maybe even like early on in adulthood, the decision-making foresight to prep for some, that's a whole nother situation. The granular details of it don't matter. The details that matter to me are we work with so many people and travel around and spend time with people. And I will say, man, one of the things that I find myself kind of pondering when I'm away from those moments are how do we get more people? How do we persuade more people to be near to and to spend their life among those who don't have options, the poor, the marginalized, the pushed out. And you're kind of the person that I point everybody to in the world that comes to me and says, what does it look like to give your life to the poor? And I say, well, you got to go talk to the dangler and really let him warn you of how unfulfilling of a life it can be if you don't get your mind right and you don't get your metrics right. I remember one of the first things you told me when we were sitting at the lake house with hot as hell because you had taken the AC out because you wanted to relate to the poor. I hated it. Yeah, you said on my headstone, I'm going to put the words, "We tried." And I think that's one of the greatest mottos for what it feels like in this time to walk with hurting men and women, hurting young people who might not make all the decisions you want them to make, but you've been trained, kind of mistrained, miseducated in the realm of what real impact or what real legacy or what real life ministry looks like. So that's kind of where I'm going with this conversation. Obviously, if you've listened to us, we've had this before, but we need to have it again because this is like therapy for us. And we're working super hard on things in our cities that we really think will change the spiritual landscape of our ecosystem. And it's so hard. It is a constant. A buddy of mine texted me last night. He was at a fundraiser for his kids' private school that has so much money. And they had a Shohei Ohtani ball that sold for like $25,000.
Right.
Just a baseball with a signature on it. And I am desperately trying to find $3,500 right now to get our boys through the summer, And it's
I have to apologize. When I got your text about that, I literally just looked at it and I got mad. I got mad at the whole thing because it's like the passage where Jesus is imploring us to beg the Lord of the harvest for workers. And I go, yeah, Taylor's been working his butt off, and he actually has a truckload of laborers right now, but then they lose their job, and like he feels like some, not responsibility, but you just feel like, hey, we had some good laborers, but I was like, hey, Lord, we got some, but we need a little help funding it. And that's where I just kind of go to the Lord and go, look, the best we can do is find these laborers, or like, so I don't know. It's just, to me, it's a different level because the intrinsic motivation. I was talking to a friend of mine that's in sales, and he's like, man, I just get so depressed I can't make a sale. But the reason why he's trying to make a sale is so he can put money in his bank account. This is a whole different deal where we're working like this. John, you're working like this. Taylor's now having to carry the weight of a guy that he loves, trying to help him figure out some money and not lose a basketball team for these kids. It's like, even when people are personally motivated to put money in their pocket, they still get depressed. How much more is this work so hard on the soul? And man, I'm not quite sure what the answer is. Sometimes and I've done this a lot, where that will happen, and I just try to bail out the situation.
yeah.
And I've seen you do that. Mm-hmm. You have a natural, like, hey, let's figure it out. Mm-hmm. But we're also trying to raise $3 million for a large project that also will bless kids.
And provide jobs.
Yeah, and provide jobs. And so it's like a never-ending. I would have wanted to take the Shohei Ohtani ball and chuck it through the...
No, that's what I said.
It's like,
actually is my good buddy, and we've been friends for our whole life. And he was like, look at how much we have a group text of a bunch of our old friends and from childhood. And he said, look at how much this Shohei ball sold for tonight. And my response was, ha, that actually really pisses me off.
Yeah.
Because I'm walking around looking in sewers trying to raise $3,500 just to get our boys through the summer. And again, this isn't some kind of desperate plea for money. It's more just the idea of like, we kind of know if Dangler was entrusted with 5 million, what he would accomplish with that. And it causes the brain to kind of go, wait, what? How does this work? What's the math of this? He gets almost nothing, and everything he gets is with strings attached. And he works 70 hours a week without pay, side hustles, has these conversations with
probably
people.
A lot of illegals just to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And if somebody hears this and sounds like we're virtue signaling for John or for us or they're just missing the point. You probably need to go listen to something else. The point is, like, we know, but I want to call more people. I want, everywhere I go, I want to say, hey, would you consider moving your life and your business and your rhythms closer to these men and women and young people that are hurting, that have nowhere to go or no one to call. One of my favorite experiences in life is when someone says to me and Lindsay, which happens weekly, I had no one else to call. And this is somebody that we don't even really know. Yeah. And it's like, that was supposed to be the good news. That not only did you have humans, but you had geographical, like, economies that you went, if you can get, it reminds me of that movie. There's two movies that just popped in my mind. One is that Will Smith movie with the zombies. Legend, I Am Legend, and then that Denzel movie, The Book of Eli, how they're just trying to get to those places. They're like, if we can just make it to that city of refuge, there's people there and there's an economy there. Both movies, that's kind of what they're saying. That's what I feel like Brave Cities is people go, I know of this place and there are people there and there's an economy there, food, trade, jobs, homes, justice. It's all in that little ecosystem. And they, for some reason, are guided by the teachings of this man that said he was God and all that, you know. But it's painful. It's confusing. It's like, man, why? How do these people, like, you know, I don't want to say too much, but
I will say this, though. It did help me as we've been in our little Desi series. My guess is Desi would not look at our question and go, well, here's 4 things that you get out of this type of a life. I think he would say, but it is tearing down the powers.
Yeah.
And that actually is motivational. If I go,
and he would say it will never change.
Yeah. So, but I still think, well, if I'm putting a few dents in the armor of the enemy, that at least feels good.
Yeah, I think, yep. I think that is the whole time we've been talking, I keep thinking about Huey P. Newton, Black Panther Party, and his book, his kind of like autobiography really is called Revolutionary Suicide. And it's exactly that, what you're saying is like putting a dent, like creating a dent. So like, I don't know, we probably talked about this before, but he basically would say like, and obviously this is geared toward like black men in America at the time that he was writing, early through the Black Panther Party movement. But he's like, listen, like there is no place, like you were talking about being pushed to the margins. He's like, we are people that have been pushed to the margins. There is no place for us in this world or in this society. And so what we see all around us is men, black men, committing what he calls reactionary suicide. That marginalization moves into their hearts and minds, and they give up and they kill themselves, whether explicitly or through drugs or lifestyle or whatever. He's like, there's a bunch of reactionary suicide. And he's like, but we have to acknowledge the existential reality is there is no place for us in this world. And so what his call is, what his story of his life is, and what he's calling people to, Taylor, you actually, it's so funny because you actually said it, like, it's for a revolution that you won't be around to see the fruit of. But he's like, you're going to throw your life away. So let's throw our lives away in a revolutionary suicide, which is to make a dent, to undermine these principalities and powers, to crash our lives into a pillar of the structure that is creating this marginalization and oppression and absence of justice. And that is the frame of that book. And like, as we've been talking, it just feel like line by line, as you guys talk, I'm like, this is the book about revolutionary suicide.
So really, there's no answer, but for some that listen to this, they might go, that's okay. I am not all that into this world, so I think I will just crash with you guys. I kind of hope some people that think about wanting to fund good things would actually see things differently and not just go, hey, I want to look for people that are hurting and throw a Band-Aid on, but like actually look for people like you, John, and Taylor, and others that just as a lifestyle dive in. And I hope that they recognize that what they invest in isn't just like a little Band-Aids. Like,
can I tell a story that, again, probably shouldn't say, but this is the authentic Gray Pages podcast. So this is why I get a little riled up sometimes when we're in panels and Q&As and whatnot, and we start talking a little bit about money. And this is where I think the prophetic voice is needed to bring down whatever this is. And we can beat around the bush a little bit and act kind of, oh, well, it's all God's and blah, blah, blah. But the logic of that doesn't hold water. When you pull on it, you realize, it's more than that. So another friend conversation. I was with an old friend recently who went through some stuff, and just like most of us in our 40s, was struggling through life and decisions and family, and it brought him to the brink of just absolute destruction. And he barely made it out, and reached out to me. We've been buds since we were like 6 years old, played sports together our whole lives, won a couple state championships together, which we love reflecting on when we talk of our glory days. And he was sharing his story with me, and then the story was great. What God did in his life was great, but he's also been very successful. And so when he decided, I'm going to get some new rhythms, and I'm going to put some priorities in my life, he found a church, pretty nice church in his area of the world. And the first thing he did is he went to the pastor, or one of the pastors. I don't think he had access to the main guy. And he said, look, one thing I've realized is God has blessed me so much. Like, I've made a lot of money, and I want to be generous with my money, and I want to give back, and I want to help people. And he was asking me this because he'd been doing this for a year now, or about 6 months. He said to me over dinner, he was like, what do you think about this? Because what the pastor said was, well, the scriptures command you to give 10% of your income to the church, so I think you should just entrust us with it. And so he is. I don't remember the number, but I think it's somewhere between like 7,000 and 10,000 a month that he's just given to this mega church, and then they decide whatever they want to do with it. And those moments are when 2 weeks later I hit this wall with this brother and with all these young people. And that's when I find myself in a little bit of a dark spot where I'm going.
Because he's been here. He's seen this too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's not him. He's asking me, what do you think I should do? I cannot tell him. I have to go to Corinthians 9 and go, bro, you got to do what your heart wants to do. I cannot tell you, but I can give you advice. And this is what I said.
You can give him Hugh's number, and Hugh will tell you what to do.
Yeah, give him
this is what I said. I kind of did that. I said, I can give you advice. I said, look around your region and look around the world and find 3 people that are doing something that you really believe in. And I'm not talking about a video online. Like, go see it. And once you see it, support it. If that thing is your kind of mega church thing because see, I think there's value. He started going to this Sunday morning experience, and it helped him. And we've seen that before. Like, he felt whatever, like therapy from it. Why are you smiling?
Just keep going.
He got up. He went. I really want to hear your response. But he went, and the music and the message, it helped him out of a dark place he was in. If somebody said, is there value in that? I would go, yeah, there's value in that. But how much value? So we talked about that. And ultimately what I said was, look, you have to be generous through the joy of your heart. Like, this is what I want to do. What you were given was a mathematical formula, which I don't even believe is biblical. And you were told, give according to this formula. And I'm saying, no, there is no formula. There's a liberation. There's a freedom for you to go, I'm going to give 90% of what I made this month, or I'm going to give 2% of what I made this month. Just give out of the joy of your heart, because he who gives sparingly will reap sparingly. He who gives bountifully will reap bountifully. So we had that whole conversation. But then after he left, then a week later, I come into this moment where
Right.
another brother, another family, another kid, another situation of I don't know what to do, and then I don't have an answer for them. So, give me your thoughts.
No, I really don't want to give you my thoughts. I do
That's the whole
think.
point.
Well, no, I think that I would have, again, it's the same thing. Stuff happens, you don't think of it at the time. But I think instead of just going to my friend, yeah, go ahead and I guess give 10%, I think I would go, why don't you not be so dumb? Why don't you like take 2 months and study the scriptures on Jesus talking about money and then decide?
He ain't gonna do that. But
I know he ain't going to do that, but
that's a good.
But
That's a
like
good
honestly,
idea.
I feel like the more people really look into the life of Jesus and what he says, like I don't feel like it's okay just to go give it to the big bucket anymore. But because see, in the big bucket, they have 1,000 people that know friends and know Shohei and can get a baseball. It's their ability to have access to easy money, and they almost do fundraisers not because they need it, but because it's just kind of what you do, and you raise your 50K or your 100K. But we're talking about hundreds of thousands of like deep workers of the kingdom that don't have those access points. You don't even have those access points. And I don't know if we should
All right, I'm gonna text him today.
prophetically challenge him, tell him to call me, whatever. Send all your friends to me. I would just like to have a talk, not in anger, but just like, come on, let's
Yeah,
smarten
but
up
it
about
seems
this.
like every time that happens, they go elsewhere.
It does. I don't have a great track record,
Let,
but
let me keep us on the path.
no. Can I just throw
Yeah,
this in?
come
Time
on.
out. Because this morning we were talking about like who are the cats over the years that didn't ever ask for money. We got
You got George Mueller
George
is kind of
Mueller.
the mascot.
Yeah, I heard Mother Teresa never asked either, but that's different. It's a different type of profile. But in these moments of your buddy sort of missing what could have been a great opportunity to partner with his friend in meaningful things, I know you must think, well, all I can do is ask you, God, like if you're not going to
Yep.
direct people, and I go back and forth. There's other times I get so mad, like I just flew across the country to meet with a random friend I barely know that made a little investment into what we do. And fantastic couple. They're just trying to, figure out what to do with their money in a faithful way. But, I wouldn't say I was chasing, but I was following a lead. It felt like a weird lead. But I spent $900 on the trip that I didn't have. And so there's times that I follow, maybe I chase, looking for the ask. But when I was with him, I was like, I shouldn't ask this guy anything. I'm begging God to put things on people's hearts. And that's there's been times where people will call me out of the blue and go, hey, you came up in a dream. Where can I send some? And those do more for my soul. It's not even getting the money. It's like the idea that God has your face on this
Yeah, that's
refrigerator.
what Mueller said that. I don't know the reference or the quote or anything, but I know this is true. It was a conversation between, I think, him and a guy named Hudson Taylor, but he basically said, someone said to him, maybe it was Taylor, said, I could never do what you do. Like I could never just sit around and wait on the resources or the funding to come in. And Mueller said, and for that reason, you'll never understand the level of faith that I get to live in this life because of what. And I think that's a real, to me, that's a real reward. Like if someone says, I have to go out and raise this money. I'm good at it and I have to do it. I would say that's a gift. Do it. I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
But when you don't raise it, which I wish I was good at it. I wish I was better at it. But when you don't raise it and it just comes anyways, that does something. Like that holds you through the years of famine. And that's kind of the
It's like
point.
when somebody was seeking God and they got an answer, and the connection was made. That's when you just go touchdown. Like,
Because I was in this moment with my buddy, and it felt like a sacred moment. And I genuinely was like wrestling in that moment because I knew I have the reins of this dude's bank account right now. And I said, I can't use this moment
totally
for my work.
Yeah.
Maybe later, but right now, this is about him and his journey and his path. And if he can connect to God in such a way that he goes, I just want to give to this, and I want to give my life to this, and my time to this, and my expertise to this. What a significant difference. He doesn't even, all he did was scan a QR code with his phone on his church's website, and they just direct withdrawal, the 10% every month. And that's it. He never thinks about it. It's just a bill.
Yeah.
And I want people to get away from that so badly. I'm sorry, pastors that are paid by that. I know that's hard to hear. Some of you don't do that, but most do. And most have built their livelihood on what I believe is a misleading interpretation and teaching of the scriptures. And people just buy it hook, line, and sinker, and they give and they go, I want to give more to what you're doing, but I give so much to my institutional church. I just don't have the margin to give much more. That's the prophetic edge of it. The evangelistic edge of it, and the evangelistic point of this conversation is to go, the life that you get to experience, the stories, the faith, and the miracles by putting yourself in the crosshairs of the poor and the sick and the hurting is such a life worth living. But you have to understand that it doesn't yield the results that like Babylon promises you. The quick, visual, got it, little time there, got it, it's done.
So what are we going to call this one, this encouraging note from Brave Cities? The illusory... No. You got to have a positive turn, because I actually feel better now. I feel like this is cathartic.
Well,
somebody was asking me about our podcast the other day, and I said, I think about half of them are just therapy sessions for us. What were you going to say, bud?
Well, you started out talking about the challenge, like we were talking about working with folks on the margins, and then kind of the condition, like the trauma that can create, and it creates a lack of options and no path forward. I jotted some of these things down as you were describing that before you set up the like 99% of this has zero kind of, feels like it produces zero result. And, I was just thinking like, and then as the conversation went on, and we're talking about more of our experience with a lack of resources, we are also talking about a lack of options and no path forward to create that job to like, and so the challenge I think is, and this is, I don't know, like one of the things that I think is like so first of all, I would say, I believe poverty, the way I framed it in my work and in my life, like I do think poverty is the enemy of mankind. Like it is the thing that we're in the battle against. And I would define it not as a lack of resources, but as a lack of freedom. So it's a lack of choices, a lack of human freedom, which we were created to be free. So when you talk about no options and no path forward, I'm like, yeah, that's poverty, to be locked in a cage, poverty, addiction, poverty. Like these are ways that I would understand like the lack of liberation, the lack of freedom. And then as we talked about our work, I was like, oh, this maps exactly the same. And one of the things psychologically that is like, you started actually saying something around the human psyche. And I was, but I think you were talking about wanting to see fruit, but there's another thing about the psyche in poverty is that what I think is the most dangerous thing, the thing that I'm most worried about happening to individuals that I walk with, is that poverty moves into their heart and soul. So when poverty kind of comes into you, and to where it becomes what I would call like ontological poverty, where you're like, maybe you go, this is all I deserve. This is what I'm like. It like it's like a capture in your mind, like a learned helplessness inside of you. And that's something we want to rail against. And so then I don't know, when I'm thinking about us in the work, and it is hard. It's like, man, I want to create this job. I want to do this thing. And we can get upset by the resources that others have or the things that they can access. And it's like, man, I really like, how good would it be to have a full gas tank? How good would it be to be able to like fund this thing? But the stories you're telling that have been the touchdowns and so encouraging is a trust in manna along the way. And it's a challenge, because it's like every single day it's like, man, if I could just store a little bit of this, you know what I mean? If I could just set some of this aside. And I think the big thing we're doing and learning about is like, and what we're shaping even in ourselves, we have these little therapy sessions, is a way to go, we are resisting the temptation to allow poverty to move into our hearts and minds, right? To have any foothold within us. Even if I have an empty bank account, I have a full spirit and human freedom that I choose freely to be in this thing. And I think examples that we look through, you talk about people not asking for money. There's examples of people not having any money. You look at like a St. Francis, right? Chasing after Lady Poverty. And like at some level, you could look at, I mean, I actually have this, I probably brought this up before. I have this autobiography of Gandhi on my shelf. And in the flap of it, there's a picture that says Gandhi's possessions at the time of his death. And it was like a notebook, sandals, a loom, and like reading glasses or something like that. And I was like, oh man, that looks very similar to all of the possessions of my friend that lives under a bridge. One of those, my friend under a bridge, is held captive because of a lack of options. And one of those that looks very similar in terms of a material resource is actually a symptom of ultimate liberation of a human being, right? Francis, Gandhi, there are these people who are so liberated that they can like go without and not hold on to these things, and can trust completely in the process, in the path, in the day-to-day, and also trusting God to kind of for that provision. And I don't know, I don't know what we're calling this, but at some level, I just wanted to like circle back to go, there's an interesting parallel to go, we've chosen to live among the margins and among the poor. And that means we've freely taken onto ourselves some of those same challenges. We don't have a path forward. We can't build everything we want to build. We don't have enough bricks or enough materials or enough resources. And now we become, in some sense, also in a position where we need to trust God or panhandle or ask for help, and lean into a life of faith, freely choosing to go, God, I'm trusting in you for daily bread, for sustenance, for a path forward. And the constant resistance is allowing that temptation of the devil, the temptation of Babylon, to move into our heart and minds, to brew either in us resentment or compromise or fear or all of those other things that, I think are constantly trying to whisper into our ear, that are the source of a lot of our struggles of like, it's hard to not see results. It's hard to not be able to fund the work. Anyways, some thoughts I was having as we were talking.
I'm going to title this "The Fun of Not Funding Your Work."
Okay, that's good.
We put the fun in funding. Yeah, I mean it's weird because money is such a stupid thing. I mean, it's not even, the economics of it all, it's not even really real, but it's necessary. And we're actually trying to build somewhat of a stoic, kind of mystic, Trappist monk type life. But in that, we've placed ourselves right within arm's length of the most hurting of our culture. For Lindsay and I, specifically being young people, primarily 14, 13 and under, but some a little older. Our oldest is 16, and they are, somebody pointed this out this weekend, like they are our uh, recruit team.
Yeah.
Like there are evangelists. They bring everyone in, and they're amazing at like welcoming and you know, they just have a knack for seeing these guys aren't really accepted in this circle. Like, let's hang out. So it just becomes necessary, and I you know, I don't like it. I'd rather just be able to, you know, whip up something in my workshop and say, here's your thing, you know,
Yep.
here's a cow, go milk it and sell the milk. Here's a solar powered whatever, go make money. But you know, like I'll go back full circle watching this friend of mine, who I brought up at the very beginning, of who's kind of in a situation right now, and it's like, hey, what do? I can't keep doing this, and I don't know what to do. He's so talented. He's so much more talented than me with young people and with the sport of basketball. But really, it has nothing to do with basketball. It's just young people. It's connecting with them. It's funny, I'm on a group text with him and like all of the players that he coaches. I think he coaches 4 teams. And he has like 4 different group texts. And every game, like it's in the NBA playoffs right now, every game he'll be like, y'all better get on TBS right now or whatever station and watch this Nuggets Timberwolves game and watch how they're kicking it to the corners, and the kids are responding and they're chopping it up and laughing, and he's like picking out specific. He's like, you know, so and so, watch how he rolls off this screen and dumps it right on the roll, and they're just like talking and laughing and telling jokes, and man, I'm watching it going, this guy's worth $1 million a year, you know, but there's no market for him. There's no market. He could leave here and go and coach in like a really wealthy, nice area.
Yep.
He probably wouldn't connect as much, and he would feel purposeless for the most part. He would.
Mhm.
What he's wanting to do and where he's wanting to give his life, there's no market.
That's right.
Here's another thing I'll say about this guy. I just want to like rep this guy so much. He gives more of his life than anyone that I personally know. He lives an hour away from Alton.
Yeah.
52 minutes, because St. Louis is so huge, right? He drives over here twice a week, stays from 5 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. So he spends 6 hours, 2 days a week, just giving himself to these young guys, spending time with them. Then every weekend, this weekend he's coaching 6 basketball games in one weekend. If y'all have never coached a sporting event, it is so exhausting emotionally and physically to watch these people you love so much. He's doing it 6 times. He also has 3 kids. He also has a wife. He also has a car in the shop. He only has 1 vehicle. So he has to rush home after his 9:30 practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays, because his wife is a nurse and she goes to work at 10, or like a nurse assistant or something at the desk or something like that. I'm just going like, how is he not funded, God? Like, how is there no, like, I have to let it go every week when I see this all the time. And I go, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay within arm's length, and I'm going to keep preaching hope, because hope is all we have. I'm a prisoner of hope. Optimism. Yeah. So what's the point? What's the point of all this, John? Finish it up.
I don't know, man. You know, Mother Teresa, who was mentioned briefly, you know, someone, I hear someone came to her and said, like, look, you've been in Calcutta all these years, and like, look around. What's difference has it made? it's still Calcutta. And she replied, God did not call me to success. God called me to faithfulness. And I actually do think that might be a punchline here, is that like we are called to just put our hand to the plow, man, to not look back, to enjoy each step of the way and to love it as our vocation and our call, and to receive it as a gift, and then to work like hell to make a path where there is no path. We are pathfinders. And for this guy, there's no path. We need to find a path, make a path, carve a path, build a path. And to preach hope is to say, over my dead body, there's no path forward. Like, we are going to give everything we have to carve those paths, to find those paths, and to make them. But it's really a call to faithfulness in the game and in the process, more than success in the path finding or the path making or the path funding. The best I got.